It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains, my colleague in a danger zone in Rainford, Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Remember when the Eagles won the Super Bowl?
I do, yeah. That was last year. That's a very good point, Neil, because this is the start of next year, right? This is the start of the 2018 season, so we can put all that history in the past, never to be spoken of again, right?
Says a Liverpool fan.
I know, yeah. I probably almost suggest that was deliberate, Neil. I'm also a Washington Redskins fan, so I'm going to try and hold on to those 3 Super Bowls. Now you're on the hunt, you're now on our coattails, so to speak, with one.
That first Bush administration was a great hit, wasn't it?
It was. I think Nixon was in charge once when we won the Super Bowl. Gerald Ford, maybe. Jimmy Carter.
No, I think it was Reagan and Bush the Elder.
Genius. Go us. Great days. Said no one ever. Well, probably people did. Rich
Republicans.
People. Rich Republican people. Anyway, let's not do politics. That literally is in the Dan Handers sense. We'll say that for the political podcast. Today, Neil's pulled a blinder out of his box of interview tricks, and we have what can only be described the magnificent Charles Davis, NFL on Fox with Kevin Burkhardt, NFL Network draft analyst, former Tennessee volunteer, and all round, or seemingly, tremendously nice guy. We're about to find out, I'm sure he is. It started a new year, so it's a bit down, so we're going to do a couple of weird world stories, and boy have I got some corkers for you. And then we're going to wrap you up talking about an article that Neil's done on 5th year options, explain what it is, and then give our thoughts on players who will, won't, and I've got about as much chance as me and Neil of getting a 5th year option. So let's get right on with a bit of weird world action, Dutton. And for me, the question you've always got to ask yourself is, the last thing you want when you're flying is wind, right? Because it might not.
No, it's babies sat behind you.
Baby sat behind you. Well, I can deal with a baby sat behind me, right? I can't deal with wind in the sense of a plane being blown out the sky. However, have you ever heard of wind of a different form? That's right. Here's a headline for you. Farting passenger forces plane to make an emergency landing. A fight broke out in a flight between Dubai and Amsterdam as I had to make an emergency landing in Vienna because one of the passengers wouldn't stop breaking wind, which turned into a fight. There we go. This is great. This is why the Huffington Post wins big bills. The fart-induced fracas, that's fantastic, happened Feb 11th on Transavia Airlines flight HV6902. Don't be taking that one from Dubai to Amsterdam. Never heard of Transavia. Don't think I'll be using them. When 2 men sitting next to an apparently very flatulent man raised a stink, excellent news, about his repeated gas attacks, according to Fox News. So I'm assuming, based because it's Fox News, he was probably... Yeah, you can guess what kind of person he was. Okay. When the alleged perpetrator didn't stop, his disgusted seatmates reportedly complained to an airline crew, who apparently did nothing. Instead, the captain issued a warning to the 2 complainants, accusing them of noisy and aggressive behaviour and making threats. So basically, this dude, I think it's a dude, yeah, could be a dudette, you know. We all know farty women. Do we?
No, they don't exist.
Don't exist. Correct. They don't exist, Neil. Well done. Well done. I see your partner's next to you like my partner's next to me.
Literally
give me the finger now because she's never farted ever. Don't forget that. I'd like that on the record. Never farted. Completely never farted. It's on the record. I've said it. It's on the internet for the world to listen to. This dude's farted that bad that he stank the place out. Like, at that point, when do you just go to the toilet and, you know, have a dump?
See, the problem is, and again, this is, you know, a myth that just because you're farting does not necessarily mean you need to go number 2.
No, but
especially in the air where it's the altitude that can can cause incidents.
That bit I'm comfortable with, but there's farting, and there's farting to such a stench that you're making other people complain. There's got to be something in the passage where the wind's going for that to occur. Sorry, that dude needed a dump.
Yeah, this is the, on the same show as we managed to secure one of our potentially finest ever guests, we are officially jumping the shark in topics that we are discussing.
Okay, it gets better, Neil, and here's the next one, because I actually like this one better. As I titled it, not the HuffPost weird news. One in the eye. Actually, how about 14? 14 worms removed from Oregon woman's eye. Abby Beckley was working on an Alaskan fishing boat in 2016 when she discovered something fishy in her left eye. Actually, it wasn't fish, it was worms. 14 of them. The 28-year-old Oregon resident felt a prick under her eyelid and figured it was just a stray lash. But after a week, she decided that it was that to see what was causing the irritation. Yes, this story seems to suggest that this woman had an itchy eye for a week before she decided to have a look what was going on. I put my fingers in there in a kind of picking motion and pulled out a worm. Becky told BuzzFeed, bravo BuzzFeed, big exclusive for them. I looked at my finger and it was moving and I was shocked. I would be doing many things. Being shocked wouldn't be one of them. It gets grosser. She pulled out about 6 more of the tiny worms over the next few days. Yeah, she's just randomly doing this on a day-by-day basis. Literally, Neil's eyes are literally closed. Waxes. He can't look, he can't talk, he can't think. Fearing a serious problem, by the way, I'd like to state for the record, she felt something happened a week, then didn't do anything, then itched her eye and got 6 out, and then continued to pull more out, and then thought there was a serious problem. But 10 days into the process here at this point, Becky got in contact with Dr. Erin Bonora, an infectious disease specialist and assistant professor at Oregon Health and Science University. A question I need to ask is, how did she have her phone number? But anyway, we'll move on. Doctors who examined Becky's eye weren't sure what they were seeing. It's very uncommon to have a worm in the eye. Is it? Thanks. That's probably why they're doctors. Strangest thing you've ever had in your eye, Neil?
See, I do get, my eye does flicker a lot. I'm told it's because I'm tired, but it can't be because I sleep an awful lot. But this is a whole testament to, as has been made mention of me, I always have something wrong with me, and I always go to the doctors about it. I would never ever leave it 6 days if I thought my eye feels really weird, and then literally think, oh, it's all right, I'll have a go myself and find a worm. No, if your eye is problem, please go to a professional.
I like the phrase of picking motion in an eyelid. That in an eye, that's not good.
No.
I'm being made aware that someone's once got a flower petal in their eye. Is that correct? Not me. Mrs. Mannering over in the corner, who doesn't fart, don't forget. She's now... Oh, I'm so dead when this podcast finishes. It may need to last forever. I think more like random things like... I think I got fat once when I've turned a steak over. That hurt. That's not one for the... But when we're talking worms, no chance. No.
I mean, I've had... especially, this is something that Zoe, my eldest daughter, of course, she suffers from dog saliva. So if dogs have licked your hand, a good thing to do is don't then rub your eyes, as your eyes will, over the course of the next few hours, get very red and close, and you'll be sneezing like a bastard for many, many hours.
Especially with Dutton-like genes.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing, of course, that you don't want to put anywhere near your eye is, peppers.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely, Neil. Don't want to be putting them... as soon as you've cooked them, yeah, you need to wash your hands. We love Weird World, although Dutton's now wondering if he should be picking the next 2 stories after my 2 gems there. If you like them too, please send your stories in. It's at waxing_lyrical. Or I'll just keep on going on Huffington Post, because it's just absolute marvellous. There's literally a treasure trove of articles that we can find. But enough talk of enough talk of weird stories done. Let's do what we're here for, NFL, and we're in that draft season. So Neil, as we said, went into his box of many contacts and has got us the brilliant Charles Davis. So we are now going to speak to Charles, and you're going to listen. And joining us now on Waxing and Lyrical Main Thoughts, it's a great privilege and pleasure to speak to Charles Davis at CFD22, former Tennessee Volunteer, but more importantly for the people in the UK, NFL on Fox and NFL Network draft analyst. Charles, how are we today?
I'm doing just fine. It's great to talk with the two of you. I'm excited about this.
Fantastic. We brought you mainly to talk about the NFL draft, but just a quick side question. You're speaking to two people from, obviously, the UK and talking about America's main sport. Does the global popularity of the NFL surprise you? And do you get a lot of interaction with UK fans based on your work with Fox and the NFL Network?
I'll answer your second question first. Yes, I get a lot of interaction with UK fans, and I was lucky enough last year as part of my duties with Fox, we did the New Orleans-Miami game at Wembley last year. It was my first time doing an NFL game in the UK, and what a great experience, and I hope I get to come back often. And that was a lot of fun. And, you know, when you look at everything and talk about the popularity of the game globally, I'm surprised in the sense that it's not the number one sport or even close to it in so many countries, yet people are still locked in and understand or know of the NFL. But I'm not surprised because of the way the NFL does things in terms of marketing, outreach, going to different countries to play and trying to introduce the game. So it's a surprise, yet it shouldn't be a surprise as well because the NFL does a very nice job of promoting itself. And I know this, in the UK, people know our game very well, and they know it so well now that our product has to be good when it comes to the UK to play. And I hope that the games get better and better as we go along because we've kind of hit a little bit of a lull there where the games haven't been as great as they've needed to be, and we need that for our UK fans.
Moving on to the draft, Charles, we looked at your most recent, and I think it was your first mock draft. I couldn't help but notice a distinct lack of Tennessee Volunteers in the first round. Does that mean the later rounds will be awash with them, or is that a few years away?
Will not be awash with them. We had that in the last couple of years, but this year is going to be a few volunteers, but it will be in later rounds. It will not be in the first round this year. Although last year we should have had a volunteer go in the first round based on his rookie performance, and that's Alvin Kamara, who played with the New Orleans Saints, and he was a third-round pick. We did have Derek Barnett go in the first round last year to the Philadelphia Eagles, and he played very well as a rookie. But Kamara, based on how he played, should have been a first-round pick as well. Of course, hindsight always being, as we say, 20/20.
As an Eagles fan, I would just like to say thank you for Derek Barnett.
Congratulations, then, by the way, on your Super Bowl victory. Well deserved too, and what a great organization for us to work with as TV people. I will tell you that.
I may stop talking about it at some point, but I don't know when.
Take your time. Take your time. Enjoy it. I mean, there hasn't been a championship in football, in American football, for the Eagles since 1960. Enjoy it. Don't stop talking about it. You've got all the way through the off season to talk about it. Keep doing it.
Charles says main, so I'm afraid I'm sticking with it.
You stick with it. I'll listen to it, mate. Don't worry. First thing about your draft that really jumps out for me is the Bengals taking Josh Allen, who's the quarterback from Wyoming at 12. Josh Allen, based on lots of reading of the draft and what me and Neil would describe as draft Twitter, is what can only be described as a polarizing figure.
Yes.
Do you see him? Do you see him? If he's going to the Bengals, do you see him just sitting a year, and that's why you've done that because you think he needs that year, and then instead of the Bengals going for a pressing need, they try and solve the quarterback's future problem this season?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Here's the reason why I put Josh Allen there. The Bengals, as you know, have struggled the last couple of seasons. Okay, and in some ways I'm being polite when I use the word struggle. They look like an organization that is very close to having to totally hit the reset button, meaning make a bunch of changes, the whole deal. In fact, as we all know, they came very close to letting Marvin Lewis, their longtime head coach, go at the end of last season, chose to bring him back. I still feel like they are very close to starting over. And when you start over, you typically start with a new quarterback. Well, the Bears brought in Mitchell Trubisky last year at a surprise. As you guys remember, on draft night, the Bears move up from 3 to 2, take Trubisky, and that was a surprise for everyone. And the plan was to try and let him sit behind Mike Glennon and get some time. And we all know if you draft a quarterback high, they don't sit for very long. But I also knew that the Bears staff was in a precarious position. And as it turned out, John Fox, the head coach, and that crew, they all lost their jobs at the end of the year, and that Trubisky starts over with a new group. It almost has that feel in Cincinnati to me, and I'm not advocating Marvin Lewis and his crew losing their job. I'm just saying the feeling is they're close to hitting reset, and you reset with a new quarterback, and this might be a way to get him for a year, let him learn the ropes a little bit, and go. I'm not a big advocate of if I take a quarterback early that we automatically sit him. I'm a big advocate of a quarterback. If I take him high, I'm going to find ways to play him early because I want to find out what I have. I want to get him acclimated. I want to get him going. People are worried about him being fragile. I'm much more worried about them not gaining the experience that they need to make my team better faster. And I feel like a lot of times we sit these guys early and then we play them. And to me, you've just wasted time. You should have gone ahead and played him. That's just my own personal opinion. But I thought that Josh Allen there, for those reasons, makes sense. And if you want the absolute final truth to mock drafts, you're always looking for something to put in your mock draft that'll make people take notice. And this one worked for me.
Obviously, we mentioned at the top you're a former defensive back yourself, Charles.
Yes.
In your first round, there were 9 cornerbacks or safeties. Is this obviously, it might sound an obvious question. Is this a particularly strong cornerback class, or is it a fact that the NFL's continual use of the passing game means that teams just need to keep addressing the cornerback position?
Yeah, it's more the latter. The use of the passing game has driven defenses to develop defensive backs better and faster, especially safeties. Because we used to look at safeties as kind of stopgap guys. Now safeties have to do a lot, including do a better job of covering receivers. We want them more versatile, almost more like cornerbacks, maybe in a little bit bigger body. So it's much more of a reaction of that. And finally, it's not a huge year for wide receivers. Okay, there will still be plenty of receivers taken, but not as many receivers are going to go high in the draft as we'd had last year. As you remember, there was a big run on receivers early last year. I think I have 2, maybe 3 receivers in my first round, in my mock draft. It's not a big year for them. It's a much bigger year for defenders. So to answer your question fully, yes, it's an answer to the passing game, and also a response to the fact there just aren't as many high flyers at receiver this year that we're going to see taken early, I believe.
Speaking of early, Sam Darnold is first overall for yourself. What is it that you like about the fit with the Browns, say, over a Josh Rosen and Baker Mayfield?
Oh, terrific. I love the question because I think I said in my preamble to my mock draft, as we go through them, and I will do mock draft 2, mock draft 3, mock draft 4, the quarterbacks will probably change spots in rotation because you always change up your mock draft. There's not a lot of difference between all of them in terms of overall talent. It's going to be a matter of matching the organization and that kid's personality and talents up. The reason I put Darnold number 1 to the Browns, I think he can solve his turnover issues. A lot of that is fumbling the football. I think that he has a verve to how he plays that the Browns need. And I think that he will take to the coaching of Hugh Jackson who will coach the quarterbacks even though he's the head coach. He will have a heavy hand in that. I think he will take to that very well. He's one of those kids that just finds a way to make plays, and I think he has the personality to deal with what they're going to deal with in Cleveland, which is trying to break a long losing streak. So I have him there for now. Baker Mayfield would be a very interesting person to put there number one to the Browns. With Baker wanting to prove something to everyone that he encounters, with the Browns needing to break out, that could be a heck of a situation. And the best pure passer in the draft, in my humble opinion, is Josh Rosen, and I don't think it's even close. I think Josh Rosen is the best guy who's throwing the football that we have in the draft. But personality-wise, he's got some questions to answer about that, and I don't think Cleveland would be a good fit for him at all.
You have, moving away from quarterbacks onto running backs, you had Saquon Barkley going to the Giants at 2. The Giants, I'll be polite, have a few needs. If last season was anything to go by, can you see them? I mean, obviously, again, it's a mock draft, you have to pick something.
Yeah.
Is this a prime example of a team that you think could be open for a trade, or do you think Saquon Barkley is just that talented that the Giants need to get him?
Well, I think that Saquon Barkley is the best player in the draft, but more to your point, the Giants would be open to a trade if it's a blockbuster, but I also think that spot right there at number 2 is a prime place for the Giants to take a quarterback. Because we saw what happened last year with Eli Manning. Even though it's a new head coach and a new management structure, Eli's also 37, 38 years old. Okay, so you've got to plan for the future. And Davis Webb's on the roster, and we still don't know whether he can play or not because they didn't play him last year, even through all their troubles and struggles. I think that if they are convinced that they really like one of these top quarterbacks, it would not surprise me at all for the Giants to not take Saquon Barkley and go ahead and take one of the quarterbacks. But let's say that they stick there at 2 and they want Barkley. The reason I put him there is he takes pressure off of a Giants offense that's trying to build again. It's an offensive line that you guys know has struggled and is in flux. They're getting Beckham back, so that'll help them out wide, of course. They've still got to do it. They got the tight end in Ingram last year who had a terrific rookie season. But the running game has been very inconsistent, and Barkley can help them with that and help take some pressure off of Eli Manning. So that pick makes sense from that standpoint, but I'm not totally sold that they would stick there and take Barkley. I think a quarterback is definitely in play for the Giants, and I know they're evaluating them like crazy.
You mentioned the struggles of the Giants' offensive line this year, and in your mock draft you've got 3 tackles. 15, 16, and I think it's McGlinchey 30. Yeah. Compared to a majority of years, that's quite low. Because there's usually at least one taken in the top 5. Is that a shot against the tackles this year? And I mean, we see that one of them, I suppose, is an emotional pick at 16, Orlando Brown, going to the Ravens. I mean, is it a talent, not talent deficient, I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, but is it not as good this year as it has been in previous years at offensive tackle?
I think it's actually a little bit better this year than it was last year, but the need for quarterbacks, as you noted at the top of the draft, the scream for them is so big that it actually outweighs the offensive linemen. So they get pushed down a little bit. And with team needs and other things that come along with it, look, those tackles could easily, in any possibility, go a lot higher. Because let's look at the Browns. Remember, they have picks 1 and 4, right? Joe Thomas finally got hurt after an incredible career where he didn't even miss a snap. We don't know that he's going to actually come back and play for the Browns next year at left tackle. So if I'm the Browns sitting at 4, I'm taking a quarterback at 1. All right, the Browns can't afford not to. I think I wrote in there tongue-in-cheek they should take one at 1 and 4 just to hedge their bets, but we know that's not going to happen. But the Browns could easily take a tackle at 4. The Giants could easily take a tackle at 2 because we talked about their offensive line struggles. They've got no continuity there. Okay, you just move on down the list here. Up high, the Jets, they're still trying to make it work on the offensive line. I think that Tampa feels pretty good. I think that Chicago wouldn't want to spend one there at 8. I think they're happy enough with Charles Leno, but they could still stand to upgrade there. San Francisco, they're starting to get up in years there with Joe Staley. So there's plenty of places to go with a tackle, but I do think that the quarterback needs and some other players who will be rated higher on the boards will trump the offensive linemen there, and that's why I had them pushed down a little bit in this mock draft.
A general question, Charles. Obviously, for the last few years, it seems, especially on offense, a big problem has been that there is such a huge difference between the pro game and the college game. Now, obviously, last season we saw teams like the Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs, and now, obviously, they start to incorporate more college concepts, as it were.
Yeah.
And with them now, John DeFilippo and Frank Reich have gone to new pastures. Matt Nagy from the Chiefs has gone to the Bears. Do you think this could make it maybe a little bit easier to evaluate these players now that we're going to see them do things in college that they may well be asked to do in the NFL?
That's a good point, and I think that you've nailed some of those, leaders of people who have figured out that the best way to help get these young people comfortable in the NFL is to incorporate some of the things that they did well in college while introducing more of the pro stuff later on and making them better. I'll use Dak. I'll use Dak Prescott as a quick example, because you remember when Tony Romo got hurt and Dak became the starter, there was a lot of consternation. Oh boy, what are the Cowboys going to do? How are they going to do it? I thought that Jason Garrett as the head coach and Scott Linehan as the offensive coordinator, I thought they did a wonderful job. Wade Wilson was the quarterback's coach, of introducing college stuff with Dak early and continuing to sprinkle in pro things, do more of those things, so that by the end of the year, Dak had a full grasp of everything. The Cowboys benefited from some of his stuff. Then he benefited from the pro stuff. Carson Wentz, I actually talked to him last year in Philadelphia about a play that they had run, and he told me point blank it was a play that he ran at North Dakota State and asked the Eagles to put it in. So your point is well taken. The best coaches now are meeting these kids what I call halfway and then sprinkling in the pro stuff. In past years, NFL coaches would have said, I don't care what you did in college. This is how we do it in the NFL. And they might not have been as comfortable as fast. So I think that the smarter coaches are doing that, and we're seeing the benefits of it throughout the league.
Final question before we let you go, Charles, is a selfish one from me. I'm a Washington fan, and you have us taking Vita Vea from Washington,
yeah,
which excites me greatly, especially if we compare him with a fit Jonathan Allen. As Neil's already mentioned, he's an Eagles fan, and he's seen the benefit of a strong defensive line. Is that if Washington picked that, is that what they're looking to do as well?
I think so, and I think that that's kind of what you have to do, because in the NFL, you know what the adage is: you win your division first. You build your team to win your division first, because if you win your division, you're in the playoffs, and that's the number one goal. All you want is a shot in the playoffs. Then you take it from there. Well, for Washington, what do they have to deal with in their own division? Well, the Cowboys with Zeke Elliott, when he plays a full year, and that big offensive line, you know what they're going to do. They're going to run the heck out of the football, and you got to have a stout defensive front to deal with them. If you get the Giants back in gear, and remember, with their new general manager, Dave Gettleman, they're going to want to play what we call big boy football. And I've known Coach Gettleman since I was in high school, and he's always told me this. And he said, Charlie, you remember what he said? I can hear him now. Charlie, remember what I told you back in high school? This will always be a big man's game. So the Giants are going to want to be physical people too. And let's say they take a Barkley. They're going to want to beef up their offensive line and run the football. Okay, so what you're dealing with in your own division, what you have to go up against each and every week, and the Eagles you've already referenced, Tim Jernigan inside, Fletcher Cox inside, not to mention Brandon Graham and the rest of them on the edges. You've got to have that. And for Washington, if they could get V to play next to Jonathan Allen, get beefed up there, oh boy, that would help them considerably dealing with all those teams in their own division and what those teams like to do in running the football. So that's part of the reason that I put him there. The other part is I just think he's just a tremendous football player. I just think he's a great athlete, a big man who makes hustle plays as well. I mean, I've turned on tape and watched him make tackles 20, 30 yards downfield that other people haven't made because he continues to hustle and pursue the ball. You don't get that very often out of 330-pound people.
Well, fantastic. Thanks a lot for your time, Charles. And we look forward to reading more of your stuff on the NFL Network. And we look forward to seeing and listening to you on Fox next year with Kevin Burkhardt on Sundays and possibly, you never know, on Thursdays.
Yeah, who knows? We shall see, and we certainly hope that we would be able to get that on Thursday. It'd be fun for us. I just look forward to being back with Kevin, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we'll get one of those games in the UK again next year, and maybe I can meet you guys in person. That would be fun.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time. You take care.
And that was the brilliant Charles Davis there, talking about the draft, and also being, let's be brutally honest, not because I threw a bit of a curveball at him, tremendously coy on the fact that, if in my opinion, he's got to be the favourite with Kevin, as they are the number 2 team for Thursday Night Football, because they're not moving Joe and Troy from America's game on a Sunday.
No, and to be fair, I think, obviously the focus is all on Tony Romo and everything that he's done with Jim Nantz and whatnot. Some of the other, the lesser commentary teams, as it were, you've got Charles with Burkhardt, you've got Iron Eagle and Dan Fouts, these Kevin Harlan and whoever he's with. I think it's Rich Gannon that he does. Some of these commentators are absolutely fantastic and deserve a bigger stage to showcase their talents. That was a fantastic interview. I really, really enjoyed that.
It was, and if you look at the games, Dutton, he usually does the number 2 Fox game. So if he's doing the number 2 Fox game, there's a high possibility they'll move him to Thursday. If you're interested in how that dynamic works, we didn't talk about it with Charles. We wanted to focus on the draft. Obviously, we did a brilliant interview about 12-18 months ago with Matt Money Smith, who now does a radio broadcast for the San Diego Chargers, but had done TV in the past, and he gives a great insight onto how you interact. I highly recommend a listen. And
maybe one day you'll accept the fact that they've moved to Los Angeles.
I never will. Yeah. And that's why Money's doing the show, as you know, he lives in LA and does the Petrus and Money show on LA radio.
And why you're not doing it?
Exactly, because I'd still be calling them San Diego. So final thing, Neil's done a blinder. He's pulled one out the bag for RotoViz.
Neil Dutton, our boy, the Dut Bomb.
Talking 5th-year options. Dutton, let's be brutally honest, not everyone's going to know what the heck you're talking about. So quickly explain to the listeners what a 5th-year option is.
Well, since 2011, all first-round draft picks, it's mandatory to sign a 4-year contract, but all those contracts come with a team option for a 5th year. Now, basically, what this will do, let's say I've got this definition from our friend Jimmy Kempski, for players drafted in the top 10. The cost of the 5th year is the average of the top 10 salaries in the NFL at that position in the 4th year of the contract. For players drafted anywhere in the range of 11th to 32nd, it is the average of the 3rd highest paid player to the 25th highest paid player of that player's position in the 4th year of their contracts. It is guaranteed for injury only. So that means if you suffer a serious injury in your 4th season and you end up missing the entire 5th season, you get paid. But if you get cut before the season, it can get wiped off the book completely. It's yet another tag, yet another tool that teams have of keeping their best players off the market, giving them a chance to negotiate long-term deals with them.
Neil, obviously, it's for RotoViz, so this is offense-heavy, fantasy-relevant kind of stuff. So here are the names on the list that we're going to discuss, and I've asked Neil, in theory, to put them into 3 categories: no-brainers, open for question, and hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. The list is Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Amari Cooper, Kevin White. Let's be honest, he's in the no chance saloon. And why? You know how much he's in the no chance saloon? When Neil sent the list, I went, which White? Todd Gurley, Devontae Parker, Melvin Gordon, Neil's favourite boyfriend, Nelson Aguilar,
Love Nelly.
Rashard Perryman and
My dad.
Philip Dorset, who I just to query that, although he's been traded from the Colts to the Pats, is still eligible for the 5th-year option as his contract didn't change.
Yeah, they've assumed the terms of his existing deal, which includes the 5th-year option.
So, Dalton, I'm going to say my no-brainer, then you can say yours. No-brainers for me: Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon.
Okay. I would have those players as well, and I would also have Aguilar, just because, say, the Eagles will probably be in a much better cap situation this time next year, and he has been, a revelation this season. The difference between his production the first 2 years of his career to last year is phenomenal. In the first 28 games of his career, he averaged 2 receptions a game for 23 receiving yards. Last season, that went up to nearly 4 receptions per game and 48 yards and a touchdown, half a touchdown a game. So the Eagles' offense, it's young. They're going to want to tie people to Carson Wentz for as long as possible. I think he's in the no-brainer category as well.
Why I didn't is because of the cap situation. So I wasn't sure, because as you said, I think his would be third, as you said, third to 25th average, but it's still a decent chunk of change, and we all know that how he's a wizard, so he's probably secretly got $100 million in cap space that he hasn't told anybody about, and it just magically appear from nowhere, and we'll all forget about the fact that they've got loads of players and that. I mean, let's be brutally honest, he somehow made Alshon Jeffrey, who was permanently injured at the Chicago Bears, played the majority of the season with a torn rotator cuff, and then and I can say this because I am a ginger, beat Eric Rowe like a ginger stepchild in the Super Bowl with one arm.
That touchdown catch of Jeffries in the Super Bowl now becomes a much greater play when you consider he did it with one arm.
Exactly. I think the 2 quarterbacks are obvious for me, and, Gurley was basically,
he was Marshall Faulk.
Yeah, as close as you can be to MVP without being MVP. Melvin Gordon, especially with Phil Rivers on the downward spiral, is going to get more and more focus. I don't see why you wouldn't do that. Open for go on.
The only thing I would say about Melvin Gordon is he's lucky that he's such a good pass catcher, because he is the proud owner of a 3.8 yards per carry, per attempt mark in his career, which is not great. But he did have, he has been a very solid pass catcher. And the Chargers, when they finished last season, basically Phil Rivers, his form from week 11 onwards, he was the best quarterback in football because he was slinging the rock. So that's why Melvin Gordon probably comes in.
Open for question for me is Amari Cooper, Nelson Aguilar. I put Philip Dorsett because I can never really understand the New England Patriots, and they probably will do. And Devontae Parker, just because, I don't know, well, I do know the Miami Dolphins, I can't understand them, and they've just paid, I believe, $16 million to a guy who catches it 6 yards 1 billion times a year.
Yeah, I have Devontae Parker as that because I don't think he's earned a 5th year in Miami. I'd be much more comfortable saying, no, we're not going to give this year, go out and earn it in your 4th year, and then if you blow up, we could always tag you, or you can hit free agency. Cooper, I would lean more towards no-brainer than definitely not, because
of course.
He started his career with 2,000-yard seasons. The one thing that I did find interesting and probably a little bit disturbing, which may lead some people to wonder why you'd bother making a commitment, is the difference between Amari Cooper from weeks 1 to 9 of a season, and then the Cooper for 10 to 11 is quite phenomenally. It's a huge difference. I mean, he goes from averaging 76 yards per game, which over the course of a full season is 1,200 yards, to 50 yards per game, which over the course of a season is 800. So he needs to, I don't know whether it's a conditioning thing, he needs to realise the season is 16 games long. But ultimately, I would expect him to get snapped up. And as I say, Parker he's got all the talent in the world. He comps quite closely to AJ Green, but he just hasn't been able to put it together.
And I guess in a no chance saloon, two fantastic wide receiver busts from said draft is Kevin White, who I'm not even sure has ever played. I know he has. And Rashad Perryman, who isn't far behind him in the not playing stakes.
Rashad Perryman last year was targeted 35 times and caught 10 passes. That is historically bad. And just in case you're thinking, oh, well, it's not that bad, at least he's catching the passes, he had 77 yards. Now, he's had knee problems since he came into the NFL. His production is garbage. They need a huge reset, the Ravens, and he's done nothing to justify the faith. Kevin White came into the NFL with people saying he's a better wide receiver now than Amari Cooper is. Cooper probably has a little bit more upside. Well, that's not come to pass. And when I say people, yeah, I mean me. I said that. Kevin White has played 5 games in 3 years. And as I mentioned in the article, I think a tougher decision for the Bears is, can they afford the $5 million cap hit to cut him? The other no-brainer for me, though, is Dorsett, because this isn't the Patriots' mistake. They didn't draft him in the first round. And, ultimately, they're going to have, probably they're going to have to work out a long-term deal with Brandon Cooks. They've still got Chris Hogan, who's available quite cheap. Julian Edelman could come back. And Philip Dorsett is a one-trick pony who isn't even very good at that trick. I think the Patriots would much rather have a compensatory pick after he hits free agency in 2019, if bizarrely another team was to pick him up, than pay him $1 more than he actually has to.
Yeah, very good point. And the compensatory pick from a Patriots point of view would be very good. It does show that, like, when that draft, and this is and Charles was open on that the draft is very difficult to do, and sometimes you put people in the draft because you want people to look at who you put in the draft, but people were really high on all these wide receivers. Do you know how I know that? Because they were all picked in the first round, and let's be brutally honest, with the exception of Amari Cooper a little bit, well, I suppose the first 2 years, they've all been a really big disappointment.
The problem that we have is that I've written an article about this for Rotoviz. It's in the pipeline, as it were. Is that we expect wide receivers now to land in the NFL and kick on because of the 2014 draft class. Odell Beckham, Mike Evans, Kelvin Benjamin to an extent. Jordan Matthews was quite successful in his way. Sammy Watkins. These have now ruined the expectation for us because these wide receivers come in and if they don't make an impact in that first year, early round wide receivers, their average career, I've done this study, and wide receivers taken in the first 3 rounds since 2010 who failed to reach 200 receiving yards in their first season, their average NFL career is 4 years. So the chances are, if you don't start fast, you're not in the league long enough to come back from it. And especially when you look, White and Perryman didn't catch a single ball in their rookie seasons, so they're behind the 8 ball. And that, going forward, is bad news for the likes of John Ross.
It's not great news. It's not great news for Josh Doxson, who was compared to Ross and Perryman and White was infinitely better in his second year. But let's be brutally honest, he wasn't AJ Green, so there's still a long way to go. Do you know what I mean? So it is a difficult one. And
it's not as if Washington have brought in a quarterback to maximise his talents either.
Although he did throw the best deep ball in the league last year.
There's a difference between throwing deep balls and then there's throwing it up for your big ex receiver to go and win it. Yeah, that's not Alex Smith's game.
Okay, sure. I'm trying to. God. Let's focus on the Charles Davis Vay pick, because that makes me quite happy, because that's who I actually want. Neil, so that's on Rotoviz. What else have you got out on the internet?
Well, I've had a few draft prospect previews I've written up. Obviously, tight ends, my area, as it were. I've written up Adam Brenneman, who at one stage was thought of, he was going to be the first tight end off the board. People have soured on him somewhat, don't know why, quite productive. I've got one for Dallas Goedert, or whatever his name is, from the South Dakota Jackrabbits, who...
what a great name, by the way, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Neil.
He probably will be the first tight end off the board, despite coming from a small school. I've obviously got a few rookie comps articles out this last couple of weeks. I focused on quarterbacks. So I had Deshaun Kaiser, Deshaun Watson, and Mitchell Trubisky. Spoiler alert, one of those three, the future looks very bright from a comparison point of view. The other two, one of them, when I saw the comparisons after a rookie season, I actually cried.
If that's not a tease, I don't know what is. It's nearly as good as the tease things that Neil put on Twitter earlier. As for Twitter, combined we are at waxing_lyrical. Neil is at endutton13, and I am at Mainsy7. You will see that at waxing_lyrical is controlled by me. You will know that due to the poor spelling and grammar.
And we do, of course, encourage you to follow Charles at, what was he again? At CFD22.
He was excellent, and we hope to see him in the UK later this year. And on that note, these top guys are out.